Guy, the floor is yours.
First of all, I want to thank Elmar for his comments, and he has already responded to a few points that have been raised by members of the AFCO committee. So I don't have to repeat him on what he said. But I want to start with what Yarigui and Mr. Scholz had said. That's exactly the purpose of the resolution. The new resolution. I think it's time that the European Parliament says how we see it, and not says, oh, we're going to wait, Wait for what? It's, we want a close relationship between the UK and the EU. There are a number of red lines, because that plays a role. The red lines that are put on the table by the UK side, that plays an important role, because in my opinion, the best future relationship is that the UK stays in the single market. So that's not possible, because from British side they all say, yeah, but we cannot guarantee the 4 freedoms, especially not the freedom of movement of people. So these red lines play an important role, but within taking in account the red lines, I think it's time that the European Parliament express itself on how we see it, on what basis of the treaty we want to establish that relationship, and what are the different, as I have explained, 4 building blocks of it, and how it will work. And I think it's not necessary to now to wait and to say, oh, let's first of all see how it goes further into the formalization of the withdrawal agreement or on transition. No, I think we are, in fact, less than, not than 1 year. In fact, it's 6 months. In October, November, there has to be the text of the withdrawal agreement on the table of the Parliament, with an annex, or not an annex, we shall see how it will be done, with a political declaration on the future relationship. And that political declaration on the future relationship, we have an interest as European Parliament that it is detailed, so that everybody knows what will be that future relationship, and that it's not something that it's too general. So that's the reason why I think it's absolutely needed that in the coming weeks the Parliament express itself on that issue, on that future relationship, and not in 1 paragraph or in 2 paragraphs, but expressing in detail how we see the different types of cooperation between the UK and the EU. That's what we are working on. And in that sense, Mr. Chaplin, there will be a dispute resolution of a dispute mechanism. Could be also different dispute mechanisms, because we are talking about 1 partnership, but with different chapters or different agreements. There's going to be a free trade agreement, probably, because there's going to be probably an agreement on thematic cooperation. And in this thematic cooperation, there could be different arrangements. And when it concerns, for example, Euratom, you cannot put that in the same arrangement as, for example, Erasmus or the Horizon 2020. That will be different arrangements. And then the same on internal security, the same on external security. So it will be a range of agreements where we are saying that has been the position of Parliament from day 1. Let's use Article 8 and let's use Article 217 to put that into a logic in a logic framework. And Article 8, Mr. Schöpflin, is still applicable. I don't see Britain going out of our values. That's not I see. They go out of the Union, not of our values. I don't see tomorrow a British government. No, I have sometimes a bad character. I could compare it with Hungary, but I will not do it. So, no, exactly. That's what I mean. But that was a joke. So only a joke. A joke with some kind of reality behind, in fact. But So it's not a question of changing the values. That is not what Britain is doing. Britain is leaving the Union. Britain is leaving the policies of the Union, or want another relationship. That is what we are working about. I don't see them going out of the values that are underpinning the Union. Hopefully not. We are not expecting that. Then on the future relationship and what Mr. Des has said, I spoke already of the red lines that makes the single market impossible, that makes this and that, the different options impossible, and you fall them back to from the British side. It is Mr. Tusk who has said that. I'm only repeating what Tusk has said. It's also an illusion to think that the problems can be solved with a so-called ambitious managed divergence, because that's the latest buzzword. Ambitious managed divergence. What does it mean? That's in fact a word to define the so-called three baskets that they want. A basket where there will be fields and policies where there is full alignment with the Union. Others where there will be no alignment anymore with the Union. And then an intermediate field where there will be negotiation between the Union and the UK about unalignment, what is not the EU acquis for the moment. Yeah, for us and for the Union, this is an unacceptable way of trying to establish a new relationship, but it is exactly cherry picking. Yeah? You put financial services puff in basket 1 or in 2 or in 3, and fish, I don't know where you put it, and what you do with import of cars and what you do. So that is absolutely not possible, and that's the reason why Donald Tusk said this is an illusion to continue on that track, and I hope that on Friday Mrs. May will give a good indication, show how from the British side they see that future relationship, and that will be absolutely key and necessary to speed up the negotiations on the second phase. Mr. Jadowski has said about flexibility, it's only obligations. Not true. Not true. The acquis communautaire is not only obligations. It are also rights, the acquis communautaire. During transition, there will be a number of policies that will continue in favor of the UK. The UK will continue to be in Horizon 2020. UK will continue to benefit from Erasmus. UK will continue also the policies. It is not only, EU acquis means only obligations. No, no. You know that very well in Poland, that it is not only obligations, the EU acquis, but that it is also money, policies, where you are benefit from. No, what it means is EU acquis continues, but Britain will not be longer on the table where we further decide on that EU acquis. In the Parliament, in the Commission, in the Council, in the Court of Justice, in the Court of Auditors, and so on. That it means. But this is not only obligations. Don't say that. Acquis is also advantages, and so on. Then on Ireland, have been different interventions, Mrs. Dodds and Mr. James and so on. I'm simply repeating what is in the resolutions of the Parliament. Parliament doesn't want to see a hard border, doesn't want to see a hardening of the border, thinks that at the end regulatory alignment is the best way to achieve this. And some are saying, yeah, but you don't refer to the withdrawal agreement will not refer apparently to paragraph 50 of the progress report. Well, I think that the thinking of those who are making and formalizing this withdrawal agreement is that paragraph 50 of the progress report is about the avoidance of an internal border between Northern Ireland and the rest of Britain. And they see it as an internal British issue and not as an issue for the withdrawal agreement. That's, I think, the thinking of those who are writing the withdrawal agreement for the moment, that the withdrawal agreement is about withdrawal issues, not about points that are, or elements that are in fact internal, an internal affair of Britain and not an affair between the European Union on the one hand and Britain. So on the transition, I want to make clear that the transition will be part of the withdrawal agreement. There will not be two separate issues. The withdrawal agreement will have a chapter only about transition and will be agreed together with the withdrawal agreement. And will come to us naturally together with the withdrawal agreement. And the question, as it said, yeah, what will happen if there is no withdrawal agreement and if a cliff edge scenario? And that nobody wants. You have to prepare yourself for it, but we don't want it, a cliff edge scenario. And it's true that we were a little bit more flexible on timing. We are saying, yeah, look, if it cannot be December 2020 and it is a few months later, that's not the problem. It cannot be too long. Why it cannot be too long? Because if you make the transition so long that it becomes, yeah, like the permanent system, then you're undermining, in fact, Article 50. That's in fact against the philosophy of Article 50. But that transition is possible. Yes, take for example when that's another argument for a transition. When a country comes in the European Union based on Article 49, not goes out based on Article 50, there are also transitions foreseen. Yeah. There is even transitions for 7 years long in the Union. Huh? When it concerns, for example, the Schengen acquis, some countries are still in transition. Transition is possible, but you have to be very careful with it. You cannot make it a system that is replacing, in fact, the withdrawal and a permanent system. So that is not possible. But a certain flexibility we have from day one, and Elmar knows it, said until 3 years for us, we see that possible. That's not in the Commission. Mr. Barnier sticks to December 2020. So I think that I already answered to Mrs. McGuinness, only saying that, yeah, it's not until now to March, but from now to October, that that is in 6 months, let's be honest. It is in 6 months that we have to conclude withdrawal agreement, transition inside withdrawal agreement, and a political declaration on the future relationship. Mr. Fox is right on the voting rights. That depends on member states. Maybe it's a good idea that now from the Conservative Party you want that the voting rights in the European Union, that we can fix that on the European level. I'm not against it. I am a federalist, so I'm not against it. But that's not what is happening. For the moment, that depends from the member states, but we are in favor, as you know, as you have indicated. I have taken note of your concerns about the spouses. So I will also ask to the AFCO committee to have exactly the 2-3 key detailed points that you have asked me, so that I can respond to you directly. Mrs. Silva Pereira spoke about an important issue concerning the new system. I think that from our side we can accept that the UK government is preparing the new system during the transition period. That we can understand, because you cannot from day one have a new system, even when I should ask you not to use anymore the word settled status, because it's not in the progress report anymore, settled status. So the system, the status for citizens, EU citizens living in the future in the UK is a status, and the word settled status is not longer be used anymore in the progress report. But that's not what we use. You use it, yeah, but you use, for example, also the transition period. You call it implementation period. What is completely crazy, naturally, but I think it's a transition. But okay, if you need that for political reasons, you can continue with implementation. But I stick to the progress report because that has been adopted by both sides. And there is, so that they prepare that system, that new system, let's call it like that, that we can agree on it. The new system for citizens. That's okay. But what cannot happen is that during the transition, new citizens coming to the UK should have a different status, different rights, different possibilities as those who are already there. That cannot happen. And I was very specific in saying you come, for example, after withdrawal, but for transition, then you are a normal EU citizen falling under the acquis with the same rights. And you can then apply as whatever EU citizens already living in Britain for the so-called new status, let's say, for this right. That's all. But that the UK government will prepare all this, that we fully accept. There is no doubt about it. When we don't want that, that there are two types then in the future of EU citizens living there. Those living already before withdrawal will have different rights and then different possibilities than those coming afterwards. Of those coming afterwards withdrawal, who have, in fact, less possibilities than those who were living before withdrawal. Acquis is acquis. And for goods and services, there will be no differentiation. We cannot accept that there is a differentiation for EU citizens. That's our point. It's the point of the Commission, it's the point of the Council, and let's hope that it is also clarified by Mrs. May on Friday. It should be very helpful, I think, also to kickstart the next phase of the negotiation. Then Mrs. James has said something about Belgium, that something of a colony of something, she said about Belgium. But you have to know, we were occupied by the Dutch, by the Spanish, by the Austrians, by the French, lately occupied by the Germans during the Second World War, and we are very pleased with the European Union. That's the best way to be independent and not to be a colony. That's to be in the European Union. And all our history, occupied by Dutch, Spanish, Austrian, French, German, show how good it is that we are in the European Union. Yeah, that were we ourselves. That were the Burgundy.
The same.
I finished, Mr. Schöpfler. Thank you very much, Chair. Maybe on the first point on citizens' rights, I have no problem to send a part on citizens' rights also to you and to the coordinators of AFCO. Nevertheless, in the new resolution that we are preparing, but I come back to this later, there will not a lot about citizens' rights because it is mainly about the future relationship that we are talking, and the part of citizens' rights that what we are talking about is essentially what we have discussed already in the withdrawal agreement. But okay, that part that is, I think it are 2 paragraphs, can be easily sent to you. So I will ask the services of the Parliament to do that, so that also the you as chair and the coordinators can look into that part of the resolution. That gives me immediately, Chair, the possibility, together with you, to give an overview what are the activities of the Parliament in the whole Brexit file. There are in fact 3 work streams, I should say. The first work stream is to translate the progress report that has been adopted in December into a formal text of a withdrawal agreement. And that will be done formally tomorrow by the European Commission, who will present and send to the institutions, and at the same time also to the UK government, the formal text of a proposal of a withdrawal agreement that more or less in 100 pages and 150 or 160 paragraphs is translating formalizing the progress report of December. That's the first work stream, I should say, and what we do, we're going to see also the last time today, in the late afternoon, Michel Barnier on this, is to be sure that this progress report that we have found it satisfactory is fully translated into the withdrawal agreement. Including in that withdrawal agreement will be also a protocol on Ireland, as I presume as an annex on Ireland, that will also be in the linked to the withdrawal agreement. And for us, it's naturally two things are important. That is, first of all, to be sure that the whole question of citizens' rights is going in the right direction, because what we don't want as Parliament, and we have expressed that in all three resolutions that have been adopted by the plenary, is we don't want that this whole issue of citizens' rights will be applicable after the withdrawal and, in our point of view, after the transition, that becomes a bureaucratic nightmare, that it becomes a difficult procedure that is, in fact, creating problems for the EU citizens living in Britain, as we don't want also that it becomes a nightmare for the UK citizens, the UK nationals, who continue to live on the continent, continue to live in the European Union. So our concern about citizens' rights is not a concern about EU citizens living only in Britain. That's a concern. It's also a concern about UK citizens living in the European Union, where our point of view is that once they have a permit to reside, for example, in one country, that should be applicable in all 27 member states of the Union. And at the same time, we want, naturally, as I already said, a procedure for the EU citizens living in Britain that is a smooth, light procedure, mainly a declaration where the different EU citizens, in name of their family, so that there are no individual files, but that there is one file for every family, can declare themselves EU citizen living in Britain. And if there are doubts, in our point of view, it is then to the Home Office to make evidence that there are doubts about this declaration, and then can start naturally the procedures that are foreseen in this part, will be foreseen in this part of the withdrawal agreement. So our attention will be focused when tomorrow the text will be launched by Michel Barnier and by the European Commission, the formal text of the withdrawal agreement, essentially on that part. We will look into that it is in conformity with the resolutions we have adopted, the three resolutions we have adopted in the plenary, that it is a light procedure, that the burden of proof is with the Home Office, that all rights are covered, but I don't think that on that there is still any doubt, and so on. And then secondly, naturally, the protocol on Ireland, it's for us key as Parliament that there will be in the future, whatever the outcome of the negotiations will be, there is no divergence in norms, rules, standards between the North of Ireland and the Irish Republic. That is our goal, that there is no divergence, regulatory divergence between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. That is the best way, in our point of view, to solve the problem. to guarantee the Good Friday Agreement, to guarantee the common travel area, and to guarantee that there is no hardening of the border because of Brexit. And we expect to find this in the protocol on Ireland that will be part of this withdrawal agreement. So I think it will be necessary, Chair, that on a short-term basis, once that the withdrawal agreement, the proposal, the formal text is published tomorrow, first of all, that we make an assessment as Brexit steering group also, but it will be also, I think, a good opportunity for the AFCO to do that and to see if effectively the 3 resolutions that the Parliament had adopted are fully taken on board in this withdrawal agreement. The second work stream for Parliament and for those involved in Brexit is the issue of the transition period. You know that the UK authorities, Mrs. May, have asked for a transition. We as Parliament, you remember that in our first resolution already spoke about the necessity of a transition. And you know also that the Council has adopted negotiation directives on the transitional arrangements, and that happened on the 29th of January, where on this, everybody, the Council, the Commission and European Parliament have a clear view, that is that the transition has to be limited in time, and the proposal is to limit it to December 2020. We, in our first resolution, you remember that, were a little bit more flexible, I should say, saying, yeah, it cannot be longer than 3 years. That was what we adopted in our resolution. But besides that, the time limit, transition seen from the EU side is very clear. That is that the full acquis is applied in EU acquis is applied in UK. That the same rules, the same procedures will continue to apply during this transition period. Only thing what will change during transition is naturally that there will be no participation of the UK in the decision-making process in the EU institutions. There will be no representatives anymore of Britain in the Parliament, neither in the Commission, neither in the European Court of Justice, European Court of Auditors, and the other institutions that are involved. We fully share as European Parliament this objective. I think also that it's in everybody's interest to have now also a quick agreement on transition. There has been a proposal, a text made by the Commission and by Michel Barnier, and there has been a reply by the UK side on this paper, where very concretely going into the details of the upcoming legal text on transition. And that means that we know that there are still a number of important points where there is disagreement on transition. The first is, and I hope that it will be solved in the coming days, is the cut-off date for citizens' right. So what we cannot accept, certainly as European Parliament, but also the union negotiator cannot accept it, and the Council has confirmed the same. When we say the EU acquis is continuing, it's the whole EU acquis. It's not only the EU acquis for goods and for services, it's also the EU acquis for citizens. We will not accept that after withdrawal and before transition there will be some specific treatment for the citizens, because that's the reasoning. These people who come after withdrawal and before transition knew already that Britain should leave the European Union. That's true, naturally. A good doesn't know that. He has no brains, a good or a service. A human person has brains and knows that something is happening. But what cannot happen is that we make a differentiation and say, yeah, the same rules apply for goods, import, export, service, and so on, but not for citizens. For example, a citizen who is coming after withdrawal, but before transition, cannot apply, for example, for the status that will be the definitive status after transition. That is for us and for the Union not acceptable. And I think it creates also a lot of problems, I think, in the UK itself, because that means that they need to establish two systems instead of preparing one system for after transition. So that's a point of disagreement, and we hope that that point can be solved. It's clear that if transition means the EU acquis was still fully applied, then it concerns everything, not only goods, services, but also citizens' rights. The second point is we want full, naturally, regulatory autonomy of the European Union during transition. We can think on a number of possibilities, but there can be no participation of the UK in the decision-making process during transition. The third is that for us, the EU acquis is not, during the transition period, completely a closed file. There will be changes in the EU acquis during transition. If there can be changes in the EU acquis during transition, that means that we are putting ourselves on the sideline as legislators for the whole transition period. So we want a dynamic application of the EU acquis, where the EU acquis is continuing to change, to be modernized based on our decision-making processes. The fourth element is that we don't want new opt-ins. Seems to us very logic, that in transition that possibility doesn't exist. And then there is the whole question of the EU international agreements. We don't want what we call a trilateralization of these international agreements, in the sense that to get the benefits of the international agreements concluded by the EU, there needs to be a direct negotiation between the UK, and that will happen, and the third country parties. We don't want that we make that a trilateral process between EU, UK, and the third country party. So that are the concerns that I, for the moment, see and will want to flag to the AFCO committee on transition, hoping that, and I want to repeat it, that we could find a quick agreement on transition. I think it's in the interest of everybody, certainly for citizens, but also for the companies, for all those who are affected by Brexit. The intention that we have with the Brexit Steering Group Chair is to have also a chapter on transition in the new resolution, and that is the third point that I want to debrief you on it. The third work stream is, in fact, the future relationship between the EU and the UK. I think the time is there now, where from our side as European Parliament, we should present a more broader fourth resolution of the European Parliament about how we see that future EU-UK relationship. And this resolution is foreseen as follows. Normally, we are working on it for the moment, together with the committees. I will explain immediately how we have done that. Secondly, that once the resolution will be tabled on the 7th or the 8th of March in the Conference of Presidents, as we do every time with every Brexit resolution, it will be the Conference of Presidents who decide on tabling and the content of this resolution finally. It will go then to the plenary of 13 or 14 of March, and that will be our contribution to the guidelines of the European Council on the same topic that normally will be adopted on the 23rd of March. And that makes then possible, I think that it is crucial that this is happening, that such a resolution is tabled, adopted by the plenary, is also an element in the guidelines that the European Council will decide on, and also concerning the future relation, because that is then the basis to start the negotiation on phase 2 of the future relationship. How have we prepared this? We have organized in total, together with the Commission Chair, as you know, because you were always there in these meetings, in total 10 seminars, more or less, where the Commission, as they do with the Council, explain to us how they see that future relationship, for example on trade, for example on justice and home affairs, on internal security, on external security, on transport, on aviation, on level playing field, on and so on and so on. The list is long. I will not bore you with the whole list of seminars we have organized, where the Commission has showed to us, as they have done to the Council, how they see it in the future and what the problems are that we are facing. So that there is still one to go, one seminar, but all the others. And in the seminars, we have invited also the committee chairs who are involved, and also the coordinators of those groups who are represented in the Brexit steering group in these different seminars. The second thing what we have done is that we have with the Brexit steering group sent a project of resolution to the different committees involved. As you have explained, I did maybe not completely well my work, but because the citizens' rights part has also to be sent to AFCO. But besides that one point, what we have done is we have sent every specific part of the resolution, of the draft resolution, to the committee chairs and asked to the committee chairs to, together with their coordinators, to react on this, amend it, do additional suggestions, and the deadline to receive all this is this evening. So that means that, but it has all been sent 10 days ago, these texts to, it's not that we sent it yesterday, we sent it 10 days ago. I know it was a green week, but for me, a green week and Brexit, that doesn't exist, a green week. That's still the normal week, in Brexit terms, I should say. We don't make in Brexit the difference between the colors. Based on these comments that we will receive from the committee chairs and from the coordinators of the different committees involved, and that are almost all committees that are involved, we will draft then a new text that will go to the COP, to the Conference of Presidents, and this to the Conference of Presidents and to the members of the COP to conclude on this on the 7th or on the 8th of March. The basic principle that we defend in, or that the basic principle in the text will be that for the future relationship, we want to use Article 8 and Article 217 of the treaty as basis, and that we see, in fact, 4 pillars of cooperation possible, The first on trade and economics, the second on thematic cooperation, think for example to innovation or aviation or other types of cooperation, thematic one. Third is justice and home affairs, what we call internal security cooperation between the UK and the EU, and the fourth is then foreign affairs and external security cooperation. So based on Article 8 and 271, what we're going to do in that resolution is describe the principles, the red lines, but not in the most positive way, not in a way that that it is only an addition of red lines and negative statements. On the contrary, we're going to give an overview of how such a future relationship can be very close and based naturally on the fundamental principles of the European Union, and we're going to recall naturally these fundamental principles. But that is work for the coming weeks. First of all, we expect now the reaction of the different committees on the different chapters and articles in that resolution, and then it will be tabled naturally by the COP towards the plenary of 13 or 14 of March. So that's the overview, Chair, of the three work streams where we are for the moment.